Have you ever noticed how in therapy sessions the client almost has two different personalities? There's the intellectual, logical side, but there's another side that's maybe the emotive and more sensitive and more vulnerable. Have you ever noticed that? Let's go into it in more detail. Hello and welcome to Therapy Business School. My name is James Taylor. I'm an online counsellor, hypnotherapist, life coach, hypnotherapy supervisor. I'm also a podcaster, an author and a YouTuber. Just a quick shout out, I've got a private Facebook group for therapists, students and qualified only, and the link for that will be in the description below. So let's get straight into this. Have you noticed this with these two different voices and why this may be? Well, let's talk about it in a bit more detail. Quite often, people prefer to go towards pleasure and away from pain. Not only in therapy, but in every aspect of life. They tend to do this kind of thing. But when we go to therapy, and when our clients go to therapy, as the therapist, we're encouraging them to talk about the pain aspect, the things that are on the mind. And although they know that already, there's a part of them that doesn't want to go there. Now, some clients, of course, are very ready to bear all and really get to the heart of the matter. But some, it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. Now, this may be consciously or unconsciously going on. And one of my favourite quotes by Jung is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Now, it's easy for that to just sail by in the wind. So I'm going to say it again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And what Jung is talking about there is, if it's an unconscious thing that's going on, because it's unconscious, we don't know about it. And if we're running an unconscious pattern, well, that'll just be what's going on. And it's not until we raise our awareness or move it from the unconscious to the conscious, we go, oh, I wasn't even aware I was doing that. Has that ever happened? I'm certainly guilty of that. So this may be part of an unconscious pattern of behaviour by the client, to intellectualise and to do that almost to keep themselves safe, because it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to open up about what's going on. It's painful to talk about painful things. And if, as a human race, we like to go towards pleasure and away from pain, this is going to crop up in therapy sessions. Not if, it's a case of when. And I would say it's guaranteed. So, it might be a defense mechanism to keep them safe. It might be a trust issue. Maybe you are very new in the relationship with your client, and the client is just a bit unsure whether you are the right person for them. They may drip feed you some information just to see how you deal with that, whilst they retain some information within. And by doing that, it's an intellectual, and I would say probably a bit of an emotional reaction as well. I'm going to give you a little bit to see how you are with it. And if you handle that okay, I will reveal a bit more. And then further down the line, I'm ready to reveal a bit more. And again, this is very common, where a client might say, you know, there's been something I've wanted to bring up for some time, and I thought it might come up, and now I'm ready to talk about it. That is actually a massive compliment, because what the client is really saying is, I trust you enough to talk about this thing that's bothering me so very much. So it is a huge compliment. So it could be a defense mechanism. It could be keeping you just there. But what else could it be? Well, if the intellectual voice that we all have, we have both sides. Every coin has two sides. If it's the intellectual voice that's talking in most of the therapy sessions, I would challenge that. And there's a very easy way to challenge that in a very therapeutic and kind way. Because if someone's coming at it with logic, well, therapy is about feelings. Our feelings don't really have logic, because you can be happy and sad at the same time. You can find something really funny that's really inappropriate. Well, that's not logical. You might read something online and it makes you really, really belly laugh, but you wouldn't tell anyone about it because it might be embarrassing to say, I found that really, really funny. So if a client is coming at you intellectually a lot, here is the way I would recommend challenging them. And I've done this so many times myself. It'd be, I hear the logical side of you saying that, but if the emotional side of you could say something, what would they say? And I'll go quiet. And what that really does, it poses the question to the client. There's another part of me that I'm doing all the talking, and there's another part of me that's maybe not saying too much. And if you ask in that way, that permission, I wonder if it would be okay. I notice that's the logical side, or that's the intellectual side talking. What does the emotional side say? What does the feeling side say? If that could say something, what would it say? Would it be okay to ask that emotional side to say what it thinks too? So it's almost like you are sitting in one chair as the therapist, and it's almost like you've got one physical client in front of you, but there's two very separate personalities. Now, when I've done this in the past with clients, sometimes it can be quite a big abreaction. Tears can flow, emotions can come out, all these different kind of things, because that might be the first time that the emotional side hasn't been crushed down or put to one side. Or, most of the time the emotional side might be, I want to say this, but this other side is keeping me down all the time. And when the emotional side is given a chance to speak, sometimes it can have very, very opposing views to the logical side. So let's do a random example, totally fictitious, but just to demonstrate this point. Let's say you've got a client, and the client is going through divorce, for the sake of argument. Doesn't matter what gender they are. And the client is talking about intellectualizing the very practical things they need to do to get a divorce. So it might be, we're sorting out the mortgage, we're sorting out pensions, we're sorting out property, we're sorting out childcare, we're sorting out maintenance, and I've just got to work really hard and get the money in the bank and do this and blah blah blah. Okay? That's all logical stuff. Now, there's nothing wrong, of course, with what the intellectual side is saying. It might all be very, very factual, but there's another side to that coin. There's another part that I would suggest needs to have a say, and that would be the emotive side. Now, using this fictitious example, if you were to say, I hear that you're managing all the admin, I hear that you're doing that, and it sounds like you've got a plan, and it sounds like you're working through the plan to come to a natural conclusion. I hear that. I wonder though, what does the emotive side of you think about what's going on? And the client might look at you and, what do you mean? Well, that feeling side of you, if that had a voice, how would they feel about this fact that this divorce is going on? What would they say? And go quiet. Now, when you pose a question like that, this fictitious client we're talking about could say something along the lines of, well, I can't believe the marriage is over. I can't believe that's the end of the relationship. I can't believe of all the hopes and dreams that I had. I can't believe I'm not going to see my children. I can't believe whatever it might be. And you see how the intellectual side has got a plan, got a list, a shopping list, taking it off as they go along. But the emotional side might feel very, very lost, maybe scared, maybe angry, maybe in the stages of bereavement, if you look at Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, because a relationship breakup and the stages of bereavement can be very, very similar. So maybe the emotive side is in those stages. Now, I remember hearing, and I can't remember who I heard it from, but it was talking about not speaking about emotions is like really needing to fart and keeping it in. And all that's going to happen is you're going to get gut ache. So maybe not the best example, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm saying. The emotive side, you've got to encourage this stuff. And at times, clients might be quite defensive with you because you're asking them to go to those places that they don't really want to go to. And maybe they're not ready to go yet. So with this two voices aspect, I would suggest that you've almost got to be uber caring towards the emotive voice. Because even just because you're saying what would the emotive side say, the emotive side might be internally thinking, I daren't say what I really feel, because I think if I say it, it's all gonna come out. This is like a pressure cooker waiting to go off. So asking a client to speak about their emotions may bring up extra fear, and that's something to be aware of as well. So if you're having a client and this is happening, and you're noticing this is happening, the client is intellectualizing everything, encourage them to go over to the emotive side. You know, if it's okay, I hear you're intellectualizing this what we're talking about, I hear that. But I wonder, the emotion side of you, if that could say how it was feeling, what would it say? And just go quiet. And hopefully you might get the client to disclose a bit more and encourage that emotive voice to speak. Now, when this happens, of course, and if you do this a few times throughout the sessions with clients, the emotive side can start to have a little bit of faith that in this setting, I've got a voice. In this setting, I can say how I feel. And I don't have to feel shame or embarrassment or fear. Or maybe I still feel those things a little bit, but maybe not as much. Maybe here it's a bit safe. And that can only be a good thing to help your clients get some clarity and help them say the unsaid. All right? So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please give me a like and a thumbs up and click the buttons and all the regular stuff. The reason I ask that is because it really does help the channel out, and it also tells YouTube, let's share this episode with other people. Let's share this channel with other people. So it helps more than you realise. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. Until I see you next time, this is James from Therapy Business School. And for the time being, bye-bye.